Let's go on to the Chicago Bears, and their schedule looks like this, featuring 3 primetime games, one against Green Bay, one against Washington, and one against the New England Patriots. That game just sounds gross to me, to be honest. The Monday Night Football game, Justin Fields against Mac Jones in New England. It just sounds gross to me, but that is the Chicago Bears schedule. Let's see the storylines and which one entertains me the most. AJ, yours entertains me the most, so you will start this off. What is the storyline for the Chicago Bears heading into 2022?
Yeah, it's the story of Justin Fields. How are we going to use Justin Fields this season? We have all been quite loud about how he was not given a fair chance last season. They did not use him correctly. He was set up to fail, in all honesty. 7-10 touchdowns to interceptions. Didn't even crack 2,000 yards and below a 60% completion rating, as you see there. Justin Fields has a load of talent, and he never really got to unleash it last season. Now, they didn't help him much by getting him no weapons, so that's number one. That's going to be an issue. But are we going to find creative ways to allow him to use his feet, to allow him to scramble, to allow him to get those instincts going, just allow him to play football the way he instinctually plays football? Are you going to find ways to get these receivers that you have open? Darnell Mooney may not be a number one receiver, but he's fast, he's speedy, and he's crafty around the high point of the ball. So are we going to allow Justin Fields to get the deep ball off and see if he can start making a connection with some of these receivers as they try to get better going on in the year? As long as he's not set up to fail and can spend this season actually learning the game of football, because I don't think he was able to do that in the NFL last season under Matt Nagy. Their future is headed in the right direction. Their present is very bleak, in my opinion. So it's just about how he's used this season and if he's going to be set up to do the right things to become a better quarterback year over year from this point on.
Chicago Bears, man, I tell you, this team is just something else. Right now, my storyline is Ryan and Matt 2.0. It's Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus is no longer Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy. They got the new GM, new head coach, similar to the Vikings. The only difference is here with the Bears, they are so mediocre that it's ridiculous. You look at the list of their head coaches, and I'm going to go through, going back to Lovie Smith, right? Defensive-minded head coach. He was there for a long time, right? After that, they go to an offensive-minded Mark Trestman. Mark Trestman goes from an offensive mind from the CFL. After him, they go to John Fox, a defensive-minded coach, which then goes to Matt Nagy, and now goes to a defensive-minded head coach, which is Matt Eberflus. So, I mean, they're going back and forth and back and forth, back and forth. It's something that the Bears constantly do, and they don't have any sense of direction. This year's going to be awful for them. Their offensive line is bad. Defense is getting older. They move Khalil Mack out of the way. There's just a lot of moving pieces on this Bears team. They don't have hardly any weapons. They lose Allen Robinson. You got Mooney. Other than that, I tell you, this Bears team is going to be atrocious to watch this year. Watch out for that. I'm sure a lot of Bears fans will go out there -20 wind chills on freaking Christmas Eve to watch them get their ass smacked by the Bills. I'm sure people are circling that date.
That's a passionate fan base, and I know we're going to talk about something along these lines in just a few moments. But like, this is the reason why the Bears continue to get like put on television, is because they do that. Their fans are dedicated and willing to go out in the cold. But Aaron, what is the game that Bears fans should be looking forward to the most this season? What's that big game for the Bears this year?
Big game. There's no big game when you're going 3-14 or 2-15. Look, this is about trying to compete within your division. I don't think the Bears are coming into this season. I know every NFL team feels like they have a chance to win, but we all know that's not true. I think the Bears are coming into this season and saying, how do we grow? How do we see the improvement from Justin Fields that's needed? And I think those games are going to be the division games. How are we competing within this division, which honestly is not the strongest division, right? You have a Minnesota team we just talked about who's kind of mediocre, a Detroit Lions team that seems to be getting better, but we don't know. And then a Packers team that only lost pieces in Devontae Adams. They'll probably still be the class of the division, but maybe that's a game you can go out and split one with them and feel good about where you're going as a franchise. So this, to me, is not about a specific game. It's about competing within division. If you can split a couple of those series within your division, go out and get a couple of other wins and start to see the progress in a young quarterback that you're trying to build your franchise around. But it really boils down to the general manager putting the necessary pieces in place for them to be successful. And so far, they haven't done that. We talk about surrounding young quarterbacks with talent. Their young talent is Darnell Mooney. 81 catches
don't-
last year. Cole Kmet, 60 catches. David Montgomery,
Hey.
42. Outside of that, who are their weapons that they've played with? They didn't have anybody. Byron
Come
Pringle,
on,
who's
man.
probably in jail, I think, still from what he did, driving, doing donuts with his
Don't-
babies in the car, or Velas Jones, the senior
Don't- yeah,
citizen.
Put some
Velas
respect
Jones,
on Velas Jones, okay? Put some respect.
Of course,
on
I have to
Velas
respect my
Jones.
elders. I have to respect my elders. So, like, I'm just saying. So, an older guy coming into the NFL, how is he going to perform? At the end of the day, this is about building that franchise out. And this year, it's just about finding wins where you can. And I don't think they find very many wins.
Yep. And we have their standings looking like this: 3-14 from Aaron, 3-14 for Aaron, 4-13 for AJ. Dylan is Mr. Optimistic for the Bears to 5-12, and I'm at 2-15. And I really had a hard time giving the Bears more than one win. Like I said, I tossed it.
That's disrespectful. I feel mine's a little low. Justin Fields will get 1 or 2 or 3 wins by himself. He'll just find a way to be dynamic enough to beat a Washington team on Thursday night, or to beat the Jets, or to beat the Falcons, or to beat the Lions. Or beat New England, or beat Houston. Like, there's winnable games on their schedule. The Giants are there. They will find a way to win some games. I probably would have them more at 4 or 5, but the way I did my schedule, it panned out the way it did, so I gave them 3.
Yeah, I'm willing to look like an asshole with the Bears. Sorry, Bears fans. Come at me in the chat.